It just wobbles and carries on, don't it? All right. Good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Good to see everyone. I'm glad to see the sun shining this morning. You know, it stormed worse than we thought that it did. We were coming to church this morning in the Methodist church over between Piedmont and Patterson. Their like concession stand and all that they built out in the field by their ball diamond is just blowed all over the field. Something hit it and blowed it all to pieces. So I guess there was more wind than we thought. But anyway, sun's always going to come out. It always does. But anyway, well, let's go back to Romans 12 this morning. Let's go back to Romans chapter 12. I'm going to talk about just one verse in this chapter. We're just moving through it. And the next one is Romans chapter 12, verse number 11. Romans 12:11. It says this. It's 3 sentences. If you were memorizing it, it'd be real easy to memorize. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. It's a very simple, complete statement. It's not an incomplete statement that has to, it can stand by itself. It doesn't have to have special context in order to make it mean something else. So that's how I want to look at it this morning. I want to just look at it in those 3 phrases, and we're just going to break it down real quick and go through some things. But I don't know. I read this and I see some things in it that it's one of those scriptures that gets just skipped across pretty quickly because it seems like it's completing the thought of something else. And you say, not slothful in business. Well, I don't own a business, so I guess that don't apply to me. But that's not what it's talking about. So, first of all, let's talk about something else. Every one of us have a discipline problem in one area of our life or the other. You drive up and down the road and you look around, and it's big business nowadays, the gyms and the fitness programs and CrossFit, and I don't know, is that a thing anymore? It was for a while. Everybody was doing CrossFit, rolling big tires around in the field and stuff. But, oh yeah, take big old skidder tires and you got to flip them, roll them across the field. It's all part of some training thing they did. It was another. But anyway, it's big business, this matter of trying to implement some discipline in our lives. There's 100,000 things that people have learned how to monetize in order for you to be able to pursue more discipline in your life. You can get apps on your phone that send you reminders every so often to let you know, hey, you need to go and, get up and walk around. All your Apple Watches, don't they have the rings that you complete, and it'll tell you if you've been not moving as much as you should? Come on, people. Where have we came to when your watch has to tell you, hey, get up and move? You've not moved enough today, man. I've never been in a situation in my life where I've had that problem, per se. However, that doesn't mean I'm exempt from slothfulness. Right. And sloth is one of those things, it's like the sluggard. So if you're a sluggard, you're not sluggy, you're slothful. It's funny that we call a slug, you know what a slug is? The snail with no shell that crawls around on your sidewalk when it rains and things like that. They don't get in a hurry about nothing. They move in low gear. So they're called a slug. Why is that on? Pardon me. I always tried to turn that thing off. Let me come in here. Anyway, so discipline. Trying to eliminate slothfulness in our life. Well, that's kind of an old word, and it sounds kind of ugly. No one wants to be called a sluggard. And nobody identifies as, hi, my name is Seth, and I am a slothful man. Ooh, now that sounds terrible too. But the absence of discipline in any area of our life is the presence of sloth in our life. And it can be about, what is the main thing everyone wants to have more discipline in their life? On three, everybody together. 1, 2, 3. Food. I'm right there with you. But the Bible talks about it's your flesh, buffeting the flesh, bringing the flesh under subjection. And so there's things that the world has come up with as discipline for you to be able to get a handle on things that are out of control in your life. But then there's things that God has told us in His Word, things He has given us. For example, fasting. Now, I'm not going to talk about fasting this morning. We're not preaching on it or nothing. But as a child, you know how we've talked about how kids, we talked about this yesterday, how these children are building their worldview. And they're listening to everything, but they're not listening to everything. So they're only catching like the bullet points or the high points of the things you're talking about. And then they put them all together and they're like, well, that don't make no sense to me, but I guess that's how it is. And then they say things and it's funny because it don't make no sense. That's what we do. We kind of try to put all this together, and then it's a matter of our worldview. But it's like, I thought that way about fasting. Growing up as a kid, I was like, if you have a real need, and you really need to get a hold of God, it's like in my mind, the way it made sense was, this is how you show God that you really are serious about what you're praying about. I guess as if you weren't serious about the other things you were praying about, but now I'm not going to eat. Well, then I grew up and I realized I discovered one day what a hunger strike was, because prisoners do that in prison, and political activists and things like that. And I thought to myself, well, that sounds a whole lot like fasting. And the way that it made its connection in my mind was that, well, that seems awful petty, like a little kid holding their breath if they don't get their way, is that you're going to just like stop eating until God gives you what you want. Is that how it works? Is that what fasting is for? Absolutely not. Your biggest enemy is your flesh. My biggest enemy is me. And so the biggest battles that I fight in my life, both spiritual and secular, is with this guy right here. It's not her, it's not you, it's not these you people here or them people out there, it's me. And so what am I struggling against? I'm struggling against the desires of my carnal desires. And hunger, eating, is one of those things. I like food. Now they call them foodies. I don't want to identify as a foodie. That just sounds bad. It sounds large. But I like food. I like all kinds of food. We lived in Mexico, and it was one of my favorite parts about being down there was all the street food, the street vendors. And we'll watch shows sometimes that go to different countries and show their street food. And I always look through the list and find the one from Mexico first. That's the one we watch first because I can smell it. I can taste it. I can remember. Eating is a social experience. And then we attach our emotions to it. And then the next thing you know, everything has to involve food. There's no control on it. It's one of those things we will indulge in with no guilt because of all the good things that we also have attached it to mentally, like psychologically and emotionally. But that's why the world is full of people who are extremely overweight. It's killing America, and a lot of other countries are following suit. Why? Well, because no one has any discipline, not just in that area, but it's not a thing that is encouraged. Because implementing discipline on yourself is a solitary road. It's not a group effort. You can go join a support group or a fitness club or whatever, and everybody gets together and there's accountability and all that kind of stuff. But if you build it on that, then what happens when you're done with the program? What is your discipline built on? The reliance on someone else's discipline that they've built in reliance on you And are you guys just going to live together for the rest of your life? Well, of course not. And so it wanes off. So people gain weight and then they lose weight. Then gain weight and then they lose. They quit drinking and they go back to drinking. They quit doing drugs, then they fall off the wagon. They relapse, they call it. But why? Well, look, it's a hard thing to walk that road alone. But at the end of the day, I can't make her or you do anything that you don't desire to do yourself. Now, I mean, I suppose technically people can be made to do things that they don't want to do, like go to jail. But what are them guys always trying to do that are in there? Escape, because they don't want to be there, right? They're there against their will. So discipline will never be implemented in our life against our will. Not real discipline. And another thing, I just wrote a few things down about that because it almost wasn't even part of this. I just thought about this on the way over here. But discipline is not for fixing a problem.
Right. That's right.
Everybody's like, well, now, wait a minute. I have problems because I'm undisciplined. Mm-hmm. No, you're undisciplined because you have a problem.
That's right.
But being disciplined doesn't fix the problem. It's a different kind of problem. If that wasn't the case, then people because look, there's lots and lots of people that I've known that are really into fitness, and they don't know God, they don't go to church, they don't claim to be religious. If they claim anything, it's a lot of times to be the opposite of that. But they are so disciplined in this one lane of their life. And I mean, they win competitions and they're the strongest person that you know. And they look like some kind of Greek statue. But they can't keep a relationship with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife. They're abusive. They beat on their wife, or they're mean to their kids. They abuse their children, or they just are a despicable person. They can't get along with a single person in this world. Why? Well, because all of the effort that they can muster to have discipline in their life only goes into that one thing. That really glorifies them. It just sets them above everyone else once more. All of us have some discipline in our life. But ask yourself this, like examine your life and say, the discipline that I do exercise in my life, who does it benefit? Who does it exalt? Is it done to bring honor to God in some way? Even if it's indirectly, it finally does end up bringing honor and glory to God in some way? Or does it just glorify me? Is it just to preserve me? A lot of times the reason why we will try to have some discipline in our life and then we walk away from it, or drift away and all this kind of stuff, is because we justify it. And a lot of times those excuses that we use are very justifiable. I mean, it's really hard, for example, like a young mom that has little kids like that one there and that one there, to get up before her children do in the morning and have a routine of studying or even exercise, when that child woke up 10 times last night because she's cutting 2 teeth at a time and she's been a miserable little wretch for 2 days. And you ain't had a solid 6 hours of sleep in 3 months. It's a real thing. It's hard to make that a reality. You can justify saying, I just need sleep is more important right now because my mental state, it has to have sleep, and it's pretty fragile right now. So that's more important than getting up and doing some, laps around the gym or whatever, But then tomorrow we do the same thing, and then maybe we look around 2 or 3 weeks later and we've done nothing. We do this in every facet of our life, especially spiritual things. But here's the deal: if you don't have any kind of discipline for just everyday life things that really only make a difference in your life, you'll not have them about spiritual things. We have people that are trying to be this like a Olympian Christian when they don't even own a pair of running shoes, so to speak. I mean, speaking metaphorically, but you understand what I'm saying. They give no effort to anything else, but they're going to be this super Christian for God. And then they just have one long sad cartoon of a life of just failure after failure, after trying and failing, trying and failing, trying and failing, and to the point where they just get so discouraged and ashamed of themselves that now they're just a slave to their guilt. And they don't, they just give up. So, I want to talk about this. It says, not slothful in business. So, slothful is not just lazy. It means inactive. You ever take one of those surveys on an app that's for like tracking your carbs or whatever it is, and it says, how active are you? None, mild, moderate, or very. And you're like, man, what do I say? Because, I get up in the morning and I'm as active as I ever want to be until a certain time of the day, and then I sit down and I really don't do much of anything else. So from, are we talking about between hours, or what are we talking about? But it means inactive. I know people, and look, it's a personality thing, I feel sometimes. I worked for a guy, and you know who I'm talking about. That man was running circles before any of his employees got there. And he was just, let's go, go. And you could not, he was 67 years old and you couldn't keep up with him. And we were all like 25. And he just worked circles around us, and he had 30 things going at one time. And if he wasn't doing that, he'd built him a bunch of dirt piles out there, and he was out there jumping his dirt bike over these dirt piles while he's waiting on us to catch up with him. And he wasn't on drugs, I promise. He was just wound tight, man. So was he active or inactive? Well, he was overactive. I think he was a little on the upper end of that spectrum there. But have you ever looked around at some point on a Saturday or whatever and looked at yourself and said, man, I feel like a lazy sack. I haven't done anything all day long. You ever said that to yourself? I surely have. And then what do? Well, you get up because you feel guilty. Like, well, man, if anybody knew about this, I'm sure. And you feel awful physically. You just feel like, I need to move, man. I got to get up and do something. Then you get up and start looking around, and it's like, man, I don't want to start that because that's kind of an all-day project. And if I start that, I'm not going to get that done. And then she'll come home and see it not done, and then there'll be answers to give her. Well, what do I do? So you'll spend the rest of your day just looking at all the things you need to do. And then you still don't do nothing. I'm talking about me because I do this a lot. So am I active or am I being slothful in my business? Yes, I am. Yeah. It means sluggish, which we've kind of already covered that. It just means slow. Now, I know everybody likes to make jokes about me and getting behind slow people on the road. But your car will go 100 miles an hour if you want it to. The speed limit's there so that you operate it at a safe speed. 25 miles an hour under that speed limit is not the suggested rate of speed to drive. And it's not what the rest of the honest world is driving either. And I understand if you're scared, if you've got eye problems and different things, but people just get out in the middle of a work day. Go to work in the morning. You ever been going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and it's just some old feller going to get coffee down at Lou Ann's or wherever, and he's just poking along, and everybody's like, come on, let's go. You're going to make me late. They don't care. They're just slow. And there's no reason for it. There's times to slow down. And then there's times you need to get on, let's go. Everybody else in the world has got things to do too. And it ain't about you and you being slow. It's about what you're doing to everyone else. You don't care what you're doing to anyone else about impeding the traffic or their life. What if they have an emergency? Right. And you're going to be that guy that's like, you know what, if you don't like it, just go around. Well, I get it, I suppose, but it's not always called for. If I see that traffic's piling up behind me, which very rarely happens, but I'll pull over and let them by. And I do it with the right attitude, too. I'm not like, fine, go on. No, just let me get out of the way. This guy's in a hurry. Or if I pull out on a straight stretch and this guy's been on my tail the whole time, I'll let off of it and let him jump out and get around. Why can't everybody else be this way? I don't, it's about others. It's about the other person. Slothful means lazy. And that's just a whole nother ball of wax. You just don't want to do anything. And what's more is you ain't going to be forced to do anything. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. They could say, And so that makes me question and say, okay, well, is laziness got anything to do with rebellion? I think it does. Because you can say, well, I don't feel like it, but I'll try. Well, at least you're willing to try to participate. But if you say, I don't feel like it, and you're not going to make me. That's where most people are. It's why people won't hold a job. It's why you can't hire somebody and then they stay with you. Because they don't really want to do what you're wanting them to do. And then when you say, hey, you're going to have to get the lead out and do this. Well, you don't tell me what to do. And then they just don't come back. And it means idle. Just idle. Well, when we start our car, it's sitting there and it's doing what? It's idling. It's burning fuel. But it's not producing any forward motion. You're just sitting there running, using, but you ain't producing anything. And that's the way a lot of people are as well. We're talking about slothful in business. Well, you say, well, I don't own a business. Well, okay, but do you have business? Do you have affairs? Business is employment, of course, but it also means one's affairs and concerns. When you say, ain't none of your business, what does that mean? Well, my affairs are none of your concern. They're my affairs and they're my concern. Well, how concerned are you about your affairs? That's the question. Are you slothful about your affairs or are you concerned? It sounds ludicrous to say it, but lots of people have got to the point where their life is a mess because they don't tend to it. They don't tend to anything about it. They forget everything everywhere they go. They're missing stuff. They don't remember. I do it too. I literally got up the other morning and I had my trailer sitting out there and it had all my tools in it. But I had been on a job the day before where I only needed the tools in my truck. So I didn't drag the trailer. And I was laying there in bed the night before and I'm like, when I get up in the morning, I got to hook up to that trailer. Should have did it before I went to bed, but slothful. I said, I'll just do it in the morning before I leave. I got in the truck the next morning and took off. And I got 8 miles down. No, I went all the way to the job. It was 20 minutes of driving all the way to the job. And I pull up there, and as I pull up to the job, I'm like, I wonder where my ladder is. And I'm like, oh, man. It's on the trailer at the house. And I literally had to turn around and drive all the way back home to get my trailer. How did I forget that? I'm slothful in my affairs. What would have fixed that is if I just went out the evening before and just hooked up to the trailer. Then that would have took care of the problem. It means it's referring to, in the matter of business, as in serious engagements as well. So it's not just the daily, mundane, oh man, I forgot my pocket knife, or, oh no, my wallet's in the other thing. No, it's talking about serious things too, like spiritual matters. If you have a hard time keeping up with just the simple affairs of your just everyday life that makes life work and go, I'll almost promise you that the spiritual matters are being neglected worse. And it means a point or a matter of question, as in something to be examined. People have this desire to self-improve or become more improved, like to better themselves. But that's as far as it goes, is the idea. That's why everybody makes a joke about when you get a treadmill, it's a great place to hang your jeans. Because it sits in your bedroom and you just pile clothes on it. And it never gets used. Because the idea of it is, if it's here, I ain't got to go nowhere. I can just get up, go get a drink, and then get right on that thing and do this thing. And then, but you don't. I don't know very many people who do. I know some, but not very many people. That's why it's such big business to go join a gym somewhere, because you can have a whole gym in your basement and never go down there. But if you pay money for a membership somewhere, you'll go because you're paying money. And I know I've done it myself where I pay money and then not go to that. Ugh. What am I trying to accomplish? Just trying to feel better about myself because I'm a member of a gym? Well, whoopee-doo. There's matters of your life every day that you need to examine and assess and say, okay, what am I going to do? And it ain't about like, what do I need to do better about today? No, it's just, what is the things I need to tend to today? What is most important that I need to deal with today and take care of today? Have a schedule. And we're talking about little disciplines in our life. Business is duty. Are you slothful in your duty? Well, eventually you will be, if this thing isn't addressed. Well, why is it such a problem? The next line of that verse says, fervent in spirit. Well, everyone immediately, like my mind goes, okay, fervent in spirit. Spirit, okay, spirit. Well, that's like spirit, spiritual. I should be on fire for God. Okay, not slothful in business and on fire for God. So I need to not be lazy, and I need to get my stuff done and handle my business, and I also need to be on fire for God. Well, fervent in spirit. What does fervent mean? Well, there's a bunch of definition to it, I suppose, but yeah, vehement. When you accuse someone of something and they've not done what you've accused them of, they vehemently oppose what you've said. Like, it ain't just like, no, that's not true. No, they'll get very excited about it. You ever felt vehemently about something? Oh, yeah, I have. Vehement, eager, urgent, with great force. It means ardent or very warm. Vehement. Vehement. So fervent, that's what that means. Fervent in spirit. Well, in my spirit. So people have personalities. But people act like their personality determines who they are. I've known people with really horrible personalities. But their personality is a product of the way they are. I'm going to see if I can say this the right way. They put the cart before the horse. One is not the result of the other. It's the other way around. That's why the Lord can save a man, and he can go from being an angry, brawling, profane, despicable human being to being like the maniac of Gadara, clothed in his right mind and sitting at the feet of Jesus. What do you mean? I thought that was just who he was. Well, it was, but then he was changed. So his personality changed because something changed in his soul. So your personality is a pretty good reflection of your soul and what's going on in here. So somebody who is nice to you to your face, but you know they'll stab you in the back if you're not watching. What's that say about their soul? What's that say about their character in that way? Are they that way just because that's how they were born? It's like saying, I have red hair, so I have a temper. No, you have a temper because you have no control over your temper and you blame your hair. That's crazy. I mean, the list could go on of how comparisons get made that way, and it's blamed on their personality, when in reality their personality is a fruit of who they are. And so where does the problem lie? Fervent in spirit. Spirit means this, okay? Do you guys, you remember Spirit Week at school? Okay, what was that about? It was about getting hyped up for ball games and like the school team and homecoming coming up, and just like it's all about it's kind of like micro nationalism in schools. It's like it's what makes our school the best. Everybody gets in the gym and they do cheers and they do songs and they do all this hyping up spirit. Well, fervent in spirit. Well, the definition of spirit is this: animal excitement or the effect of it. Now, how many got dogs? Well, most everybody's got dogs. You know what the zoomies are? What they call the dog got the zoomies? Well, it's when you let them out of their pen or you start messing with them or playing with them or whatever, and they get so excited they just can't contain it no more. And they just take off running. And they just run as hard as they can in a big circle out in the yard. And then they come back up to it. They just got to let it out somehow. They can't contain it. They got spirit. Yes, they do. He says, be fervent in spirit. He said, first, not slothful in your business, fervent in spirit. It means life. So if fervent means warm or ardent that way, it means something that's warm is alive. Unless you're a reptile or like a snake or something like that. But have you ever, even on a cold day, those of us worked outside, go out on a cold day and I mean it's freezing. You get to work and the next thing you know, you got sweat running off the end of your nose. It's like, how is this happening? Well, I worked for a guy one time. We'd go to work in the morning and it'd be so cold and we'd just be huddled around a fire or something. He'd say, all right, boys, let's get to it. Heat's in the tools. The heat's in the tools. What did he mean? He meant, well, you start moving and you start doing something and start getting after it, you're going to warm up. And that's the truth. So if you're sedentary emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, then what do you think your spirit is going to reflect about that? Is it going to be full of excitement and full of life and just getting warmer and more and more and more? Or is it just going to slowly fade out and flicker out like a candle? That's what it's going to do. Because the last thing he told us there is serving the Lord. Well, serving the Lord, as believers, that's the most important business that we have in our life. It's more important than physical fitness. It's not absent of it, but it's not the main goal. You know, that's why the Apostle Paul said bodily exercise profiteth little. He didn't say nothing, he just said little. Because the kingdom of God and serving the Lord is more important than that. Because the effects of it are eternal. You know, you can work out and be like Charles Atlas or Jack LaLanne, but guess where both them guys are? They're dead. Because that's the way of all men. You know, you ever see a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger lately? I mean, there was a time where he was Mr. Olympian. And, I mean, built like no other. And he's an old, saggy man now. What do you mean? Well, he got old. Gravity always wins the battle. And it's just what's happening to us all. So serving the Lord as a Christian, that is the most important business that we must tend to or should tend to in our lives. It can be exercised, 10,000 different ways in our lives as far as tending to the business of serving the Lord. You know, there's a lot of people that try to lay out almost like a business plan of what that looks like, and then everybody has to do those things, and then everybody feels like they're doing what they should. But they're slothful in business, and they're not fervent in spirit. So they just subscribe to a gym and then go sometimes. You ever been to the gym and watch the people that go in there with purpose and intention, or the ones that go in there just to say they went? They walk around. And they'll mess with this machine a little bit. And they'll sit and look at their phone for 10 or 15 minutes. Go get a drink of water. Walk over there to that one and mess with this a little bit. You know, it's like they got to convince themselves they did something by going and that. But nothing, they profited nothing. So there's a lot of things that people try to do to serve the Lord. But it's not really doing much good. It makes them feel like they are, but that's about all it does. So there's business to tend to in even considering what I'm doing. Is it really serving the Lord? Or is it just making me feel like I can check that box off now and I don't got to feel guilty about it? People do this with going to church. They go to church and they couldn't tell you the names of half the people that they go to church with because they just go there and zone out. And then they get up and leave, and it's like the bell rings and that's when they go. And then when the bell rings again, that's when they go home. But they don't, that's the extent of it. They don't, their service to the Lord. Well, is that really serving the Lord? Is it profiting them? And they might as well not come. Because they're deceiving themselves saying they're serving the Lord. And they're not tending to their business. All right, so then, if that's how you approach it, if that's how you feel about it, then it won't never go any further than an idea. You're just dreaming. It's just a dream. So fervent in spirit here is not referring to the spiritual, but more to the mindset or the headspace of the individual and how they are to always try to maintain that mindset about not only spiritual matters, but in their everyday affairs of life. You know, there's a road down there in the bluff called Township Line. You know what I'm talking about. And there's a house on that street. And for the longest time, I thought it was just an abandoned property. It was just piled, the yard. There was no yard. There was a little spot to pull off of the road where the driveway used to be. But it's just junk. I'm talking piled up as far as you could see all around the house. You couldn't even get to the house. But I realized someone lives there. And they eventually hired somebody to come in with a bobcat and a dump truck, and they scooped every bit of that junk up, put it in the dump truck, hauled away, and now the yard's clean. And I thought, well, good, maybe somebody bought it, and they're going to plant some grass and put some gravel on the driveway, and it ain't going to be such an eyesore no more. Nope, same people lived there. And guess what happened? They just started hauling stuff home again from wherever they were at, hauling it home. And about a year later, the yard's piled high again. So, what do? They live that way with no discipline about the problem. The problem is the junk in the yard. But they get sick and tired of the junk in the yard. I mean, that's embarrassing. They live right by the highway. So everybody drives by and says, look at that dump. And they think ill of the people that live there. And they know that. So instead of not bringing home any more junk, they just do this drastic thing once or twice, once a year, once every couple of years, that just eliminates the fruit of what they're doing. So then they don't got to deal with the shame or the stigma. It's like hitting a reset. But then they just they haven't eliminated the toxic behavior of bringing home all this junk and leaving it in the yard. So it just piles up again. People, we do that with our life when it comes to discipline. Take a person that has no discipline in their life. What's that going to produce in their life? Well, it's going to produce a bunch of problems that make their life really difficult. And then it's going to get to a certain point where they're just like, I can't take this no more. So they do something drastic. They're going to change everything about themselves. They're going to stop eating all this stuff. They're going to start going to the gym 4 times a week. They're going to they try to change everything. They go through their house and throw away all the food in their house that has a carb in it. And it lasts for like a week, maybe. And the next thing you know, they're going to the dollar store again and getting some more of this and some more of that. They just fall as drastically as they've jumped on the wagon, they hit the ground with more force the same way, falling off. Well, that's because that's not how you're going to implement discipline in your life. That's not how you're going to eliminate sloth from your life concerning your business. Look, as a person who has struggled with this in my life, I've done the whole, we're going to reinvent myself. This year's the year. I'm reinventing. This is it. We're doing it. And I never stuck with it. But what I have started to is that you got to start small. If you're not going to be slothful in your business, then you're going to have to start tending to your business a little at a time. you're not a disciplined person. So you're not going to just wake up tomorrow and be this disciplined person that can handle all of this. So you got to start one thing at a time. I'm going to work on this about me this week. And if I can do it the whole week, then next week I'll add to this. Fasting is one of those things that is a tool to bring your flesh under subjection, but it's more than that. It makes you realize how much of a grip you don't have on a lot of things in your life. And if you ain't never fasted and you eat 6 times a day, I wouldn't say, I'm doing a 10-day fast and that's what I'm doing. With the help of the Lord, I'm not eating a bite for 10 days. How about try 24 hours first? Because you can do that. And the Lord will help you, but you can do that. And when you accomplish something, it gives you a lot more confidence to do the next thing and then the next thing. That's why even the Christian experience, this is a journey. It's a walk. You don't just teleport to heaven. Wouldn't that be nice? Just when you're there. It's a long, long pilgrim's progress. And these are the things it's made up of. The Pilgrim's Progress is such a good book. It's an old one, but it's such a good book. And you ought to read it like it ought to just be part of what you read. You just read it over and over because it is divinely inspired. I truly believe that. Because, man, you can identify with every single step of everything that Pilgrim went through in that book. So, fervent in spirit. I wrote it out this way: an eagerly urgent, burning, pulsating excitement and love for life first. It's hard to be excited about eternity and spiritual matters and seeing others come to know the Lord if you hate your life. If you have no hobbies, if you have no things that you get pleasure from in life. The Lord created us and He created this earth. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. He provides for the birds to eat and He provides for us too. He don't mean for us to just dress in gray and stare at the ground until He finally comes and delivers us. He created us and created this world for us to be able to live a happy life. Happy. Joy and happiness are supposed to be part of our everyday experience of life. And you meet people all the time that are just the biggest Debbie Downers in the world. There is no joy for them in life. There is nothing that they like. There is no pleasure that they find in anything. Well, how in the world is a person like that going to progress in life? Well, they're not. They're just dying on the vine. Or they're like the one that fell off the vines laying on the ground. There's no life. They're not moving. They're not pursuing anything with ardency or fervency. Well, what are they doing? If you're not living, you're dying. And that's what they do. And they drag as many people down with them as they can that are around them. You got to have a love for life. Do you have anything in your life that's worth loving? There's not a single person in the world that can't find something. We take for granted the things we have to love about our life. Mercy. And an unquenchable fire, that drive that motivates you to never quit despite the mundaneness of the task. There's things about work that, man, I hate. Aspects, certain jobs of what I do for a living that I do not like. But they are absolutely going to happen. No matter what, I've got to do them. And so I can gripe and put it off and gripe and throw a fit. Or I can just say, you know what? I can't get to that part till this part's done, so let's just knock it out. There's a certain sense of happiness and joy or satisfaction that comes from accomplishing the hard thing. And it's just, that's what I'm talking about, is finding little, like micro doses of happiness, even in the things that don't bring you happiness. If you approach it with the right spirit, it's there. It's there. And it means the courage to be the only person you know that has not given up on your disciplines and your intentionality. You know? Don't expect everybody to be excited about the things that you do to try to discipline yourself. If you don't believe me, just do a fast. And watch how everyone around you responds to you not eating when they're eating. It's weird. It's something I never anticipated would be a thing. But everybody is like, oh, okay. And then they act like they're trying to be respectful of it. But if you go longer than they think you should, then they act like something's mentally wrong with you. And then they start questioning why you're doing it. And I don't know, it's a very strange phenomenon that happens. Discipline is one of those things that you're going to have to do alone. It's by you, for you. It's like fertilizing the soil that the plant of your life is growing in. And that's what discipline brings. Fervent in spirit. So, how do I find fervor in my boring and mundane, uneventful life? We're out of time. I need to quit. Is there any purpose to my life and what I do every day, even though it's a thankless and invisible life I live? My life doesn't really overlap or affect or even benefit anyone else. Well, you got to be intentional. You got to be intentional with the things that that's what, not slothful in business, that's what it means. You're tending to the business of your life. Figuring out the reasons why you are the way you are, and if there's something wrong with it, then working on that. It takes discipline of mind and body, time and routine and schedule, and even your comfort. Discipline is uncomfortable. That's why nobody wants to do it. But discipline is built by routinely being habitual about the little things most people don't think are very important. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 9:10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. That means fervor. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. I love Ecclesiastes because he's just writing it out there real, just the way it really is. Colossians 3:23 says, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily as unto the Lord. This is really the thing, serving the Lord. Our scripture ends with serving the Lord. Why do you want to be disciplined if it's not to make you able to serve the Lord better? That's really, if that is your motivation, and it should be, for everything, even things to do with buffeting our flesh, bringing our flesh under subjection, it's so I can serve the Lord better. That's what it's about. So, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. Amen.